Welcome you all to this second lecture of the sixth week. In this lecture, we'll be focusing on the transformation or the transformations that have occurred in the domain of language and literature. What was the type of language? What was the state of affairs related to literature, the literary discourse, contributions? These are the things we'll be discussing. As we would be recollecting that Arabic was not the first language of the Turkic peoples, of the Ottomans, rather it was the second language. And the Ottoman territories, the Ottoman Empire, in its larger chunks or in significant chunks, significant portions, represented the Arabs. But again, here the rulers, the Ottoman rulers, the organizing, administering authorities, they were the Turks. Even the Mamluks, whose rules are directly related to Arabic language and literature because of the geography, representing Egypt and Syria and some parts of Hijaz. Here again, they were the Turkic peoples. So, Arabic was language of the religion. It states religion of language, but the administration of the affairs of state, the official correspondence in a later stage was replaced, had replaced Arabic with the Turkic. So, in such case, it is quite understandable that the literary vigor and charm, the aesthetics of language and literature, the salient features of language and literature in terms of whether the language was genuine, was natural, hence it was beautiful, or it was artificial. It was weak, hence beautified artificially, hence weak. Because if there is a thing that is artificially augmented in terms of beauty, it is beautified. So, it won't be losing its aspects of weakness. So, it is weak. It is simply augmented, made something like appearing beautiful. So, the society, in terms of the literary context, the official language of the Mamluk rulers was Arabic, as they used it as a means of communication for all affairs, including administration and judiciary. Why? Because the areas of their dominion, of their rule, was primarily represented by the Arabs, the Arabic speakers. They were there. The Arab population were there. During this era, two contrary tendencies emerged. The first, it was the libertine tendency characterized by moral laxity, indulgence in intoxicants, and pursuit of worldly pleasures. And the second was ascetic tendency, witnessed the flourishing of Sufi institutions, prophetic panegyrics, and spiritual verse inspired by devotion and pity. The court culture, unlike the much celebrated court culture of the Umayyads and the Abbasids, in the post 1258 era, poets did not find well-paying patrons such as the Abbasid Caliph Harun al-Rashid or the Hamdanite Saifuddawla, in whose generous courts they could practice their craft. And reason in the sequence is given to the change that most post 1258 rulers were not Arabs. So here again, the thing is primarily related to the language of the ruler and his language preferences. After the Mongol invasion, Egypt and Syria preserved their prominent status in Arabic literature, becoming centers filled with libraries, mosques, and schools. So here the focus shifted to Egypt and Syria. Egypt and Syria, not the cities in proper in Arabia proper, that is Basra and Kufa and Baghdad. So from Basra, Kufa, and Baghdad, now the focus was shifted to Syrian territories as well as Egypt. Scholars flocked to these areas and literary activity flourished there, though it generally remained within a traditional framework. So here the framework was the framework remained traditional. Arabic was the language of administration, religion, sciences, and high culture in a multi-ethnic empire. But it lasted only till the second phase of the Mamluk times. During the second phase of the Mamluk period, the official language was it was the Turkic that was the official language of administration, of communication, official communication. Before that, it was something like, even if officially it was Arabic, but practically it was the Turkic. It was a phase of consolidation, preservation, and regionalization, a culture of encyclopedic knowledge and systematization. Because for the first time in history of Arabic language and literature, the encyclopedic knowledge and encyclopedic literature we find flourishing for the first time. يعني كتب الموسوعات والمجامع العلمية، المدونات الكبرى التي تغطي كل أنواع المعرفة مثل ما نجدها الآن في سياق الموسوعات والمجامع العلمية، نجدها لأول مرة في هذه الفترة. The major literary trends are represented by encyclopedias, that is أدب الموسوعات والمجامع. We'll be giving examples of أدب الموسوعات والمجامع while we'll be talking about prose. Professionalization, many writers were also high-ranking bureaucrats, judges, or the religious scholars. We have the wazirs, we have the high-ranking officials, doubling up as, of course, the writers, the poets, or the poets and writers doubling up as the wazirs and the high officials. Continuity of classical forms, that is qasida and ode and maqama, remained as they were. They remained dominant. So some of the primary derivations or the aspects which were byproduct of the expansion or development while coming in contact with the Persian influences, elements, and hence the Persian influences like Rubai, Khumasi, Mukhammasat, etc., or the Mulamma'at, where there have been some minglings of languages like Arabic and Persian, Arabic and Turkish and Arabic and Turkish and Greek, al-Mulamma'at. We have seen the examples. These examples, as we can simply recollect. These things continued in the form of qasida. That is the structural entity of qasida as it was inherited from the past centuries. It continued. So there was a continuation of the classical forms. This point is significant while we'll be looking into the emergence of the new genre like the free verse. So the emergence of free verse is is related to a later stage, not the stage of or the period of the uh, Ottomans or the Mamluks. Maqama also continued. No emphasis on biography and history. We'll be saying that there were tremendous works in the domain of, in the fields of biography, in the fields of history, on also sciences. Because, and here we must point out that uh, the domain of poetry didn't gain much instance uh, due to many factors, like the weaknesses. الضعف الذي كان قد تبادر، كان قد اعترى الحقل الشعري في العصر العباسي. We had seen poetry being subject to weaknesses, several factors of weaknesses, linguistic factors, the socio-political factors, all having their imprints on the domain of poetry, making the poetry much artificial, much embellished, because this embellishment was not natural, rather it was artificial. So during the Ottoman period, the major thing, the substantial thing, or the standard language as we can conceive, as we usually conceive related to literature and literary discourse, scientific writings, that standard language is represented in prose, not in poetry. In poetry, the past weakness, or that series of weaknesses as we had seen being initiated during the later Abbasid periods, they continued till the Ottoman period and the Mamluk periods. That's why the powerful literary discourse that is found during the times of the Ottomans and the Mamluks, it is represented by the contributions by the books in prose, chiefly in biography and history. Although there were some ornate and rhythmic prose, a saja, which were highly valued, but certainly was not prized in scholarship, in scholarly works. So the dominant genres in the poetry were al-madh, al-ghazal, al-fakhr, al-zuhd wal-hikmah, al-risa, al-hija, al-khamriyat. While in the domain of prose, greater emphasis was laid on the commentaries, on the tradition of commentaries, where scholars worked to compile, to prepare the compendiums, to summarize and systematize and preserve the vast classical literature, alongside their primary works in historiography and biographical dictionaries, philology and grammar. Intense focus on preserving the pure Arabic and pre-Islamic poetry. So these were the dominant genres. Continuity and refinement. Poets largely worked within the classical Abbasid tradition, and the predominant themes were the panegyrics, the bada'iyat, the stylistic features, a tendency towards verbal artistry and technical virtuosity, sometimes at the expense of the emotional depth. Because here the primary beauty, the inherent original beauty that is carried out by a language in prose or poetry, it happens only where there are less interferences by the external forces that would be corrupting or the very nature of or inflicting losses to the purity of the language. Because if the milieu is complex, it is a mix from in terms of ethnicity, in terms of the popular culture, in terms of the general culture that is found in society, So here we'll be finding that people would be paying greater attention to artificiality, embellishment, artificial embellishment, that is verbal artistry, and that will be at the expense of the real value of the text in question, in terms of merit, in terms of original merit. So these are the primary things which have been discussed. So here we have, to sum up, we have a share, that is poetry. We have al-mawsu'at, al-majami' al-ilmiya in the domain of al-nasr. We have al-tarikh, history. We have al-geographia. We have al-ulum. We have al-ulum, that is sciences. And we'll be discussing chiefly, especially we'll be discussing one aspect, that is كتب الفروسية وآداب الحرب, the literature that is related to strategic studies, what we usually describe nowadays as strategic studies, the literature given to describing war machine, war products, military organization, etc. It was for the first time in the history of Arabic language and literature that we find Kutubul Furusiya wa Adabul Harb being written in Arabic. It was for the first time during the times of the Mamluks, or generally the Ottomans. So with this we conclude this lecture. Thank you very much.